stunning.
All right.
Hey, God bless. You look amazing, all right?
Mamma mia.
Yeah, okay, Mamma Mia.
Now, that's amore.
That's okay. All right.
Welcome back to Mouthwords. I'm Abby.
I'm Austin.
This is Mouthwords,
Yeah.
like we said. All right, so today we got another one of Abby's Tinder horror stories because I'm not just making this up or saying this. Somebody actually asked for more of this, so I got it. And I'm going to give it to you until I don't have it anymore. So we got that. Mm-hmm. We got a recovery anniversary to celebrate. And we're going to talk about the comedy industry's latest predator. Mm-hmm. Sexual predator. So let's get right into it. Some updates that we got.
So I was doing Uber Eats in my Camry. Not the best Camry, whatever. Was driving. UPS pulled out, crashed my car, no longer doing Uber Eats, got a new car, got a new job. Boom. Updates.
That's what happens when UPS pulls out.
Yeah. Oh!
Well, that's fun. That was quite a ride.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what are you driving now?
Driving a 2014 Toyota RAV4. If you guys want to find me, you can see me halfway out my sunroof. I'll be driving down the highways going, hello!
Is that what that's your dream? That's your wildest dream, apparently. Congratulations on the car, and I'm glad that you had an accident.
Thanks.
I do also have some updates.
Yeah.
As a lot of people might have heard. I got my goddamn Instagram back.
Let's go.
Oh, and I returned just like nothing had ever changed or happened.
You're like, what's up, guys? 3 months older, 3
4.
months.
Well, okay, a little over 3 months. But
Still,
I've been saying 4 months.
A long time.
Yeah, it was a very long time. I was building a whole nother like freaking account up, and then they're like, "Hey, here's your old."
Wow.
So I went back to the motherland.
It's like riding a bike. Just get right back on and.
Well, and then a few nights ago, I check my stories all the time because that's how I know who's watching me. Mm-hmm. And I saw a sketchy. I think I sent you a screenshot of it. Yeah. It was just an anonymous profile, no name, not following anyone, and no followers. So we knew what was probably going on there. I blocked him. I showed him.
Back
and I
to
have
his old games.
I have thoughts sometimes of like posting like a question on my Instagram story that's really just saying, "Hey everybody, say hi to," and then so it has like a response window where they can just say it.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
That's the kind of stuff I think about at night before I go to sleep.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
Because like, what if what if you open that up and there's just story after story after story of different people saying it in my response to the question?
It'd be amazing.
Like people he has no idea. And so like it comforts me. It's one of my wildest fantasies right now.
Wow.
That's my rant.
Well,
I got my Instagram back.
It's good to have you back. So you recently sent me a video and it kind of blew my mind, changed how I see the comedy. And in the TikTok, it was from It's Tea Time. It's someone from Instagram that basically is a comedian and a news influencer, and she was breaking the story. And if you want to explain a little bit about what happened.
Okay, this is rough. So if you're sensitive to this, sexual harassment, everyone should be sensitive to it. But if you're extra sensitive, trigger warning, that's all I'm saying. Yeah. Bobby Lee, he's known for many things. If you don't know him, just Google him. So Bobby Lee was on his own show, I believe, but this is like a 3-year-old clip at this point, and he's been telling this story for 10 years, at least. And so he was on his own podcast talking about how he indulges in sex work, which I have nothing against. Mm-hmm. Sex work is great for those who are consensually doing it. Mm-hmm. But he would go to Tijuana for these services, and it was pretty clear the way that he described this situation that she was not of age. He thought it was funny that the way that he was positioned behind her, with the moonlight hitting her just the right way, he could see her crying, and like I think he says like the tears running down her face.
Yeah.
Which is like terrifying, and that quote, she looked scared.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
That's what he said, and this was something he said a lot on like multiple podcasts and bits.
Yep. Oh yeah. About a month ago, he was on his own podcast and was basically just claiming that it was a joke, that he took 2 bits and made this whole story up and all this stuff. By the way,
the 2 bits he took it from were equally as up.
Oh, they're horrible.
Didn't he lie about getting molested as a child? Like stuff like that. Like
he started just saying that everything that he said basically from the point of his career on was all made up and all fake. So like
yeah, he discredited himself just to make sure that he didn't get in trouble for the rape allegations.
Yeah. Which is insane.
It's absolutely insane.
You're throwing everything you've been saying for years just away.
And he apologizes and said that he didn't mean it. It was a joke, and it keeps him awake at night. He thinks about it every day. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So we don't have any sympathy for that. But the thing was, he went on Theo Von's podcast, and I found this after searching through videos because that clip of him doing the bit is gone. They had the whole episode taken down.
Yeah.
They wanted to get rid of it as if it's ever going to go anywhere. I mean, like, it's stuck on the internet now. But there's an episode that he goes on Theo Von's podcast, and I'm a big fan of Theo Von. I watched him on all the Real World Road Rules, everything. Mm-hmm. So I was, like, really hoping to get a good reaction from him because no one has reacted. No one has said anything. By no one, I mean the comic community. Like, who is it that was on tour with him that they canceled?
Andrew Santino. And they put it on pause.
Oh, okay. They put it on pause, and he has said, like, nothing, right?
No. They haven't even talked about
Silence
it. Silence
is complacence. I mean, like...
Yeah.
So he did go on Theo's show, and he was like, if this is going to make me look bad, you're going to take this down, right? Promise me that if this is going to ruin my career or something like that. And he's like, yeah, I promise. And so he tells the story of what he did. Theo is just like, he's in disbelief pretty much. And the guy on his show and Theo are both addressing the person as a girl, and what's his face? Bobby Lee keeps saying, no, you can't, don't say that. She was a woman. Like, he's obviously like doth protest too much with the whole thing. I was very happy to hear that or see that like Theo was visibly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could like tell.
Yeah, it was really awkward. Yeah. Super cringy. We loved it. So check it out. Try it out.
Yeah, definitely try it out. USA Today was talking about it too.
Oh yeah, that's the big article we were reading.
That's big stuff. So the news is talking about it. And
but not a comic.
And just to give some credit, it's at teatime_with_Sarah on TikTok. She's the one that broke the original TikTok story. So
yeah, shout out. So by the time this airs, it will be a very special day for me, I guess. It supposedly is. It'll be my 4-year anniversary of recovery from my big ass eating disorder. Because I don't know how to approach this. No, it's cool. I'm excited. There is some pride in it, and there is some like fear of being proud because when in recovery, it's like how am I supposed to feel about all of this ambivalence? Because not every day's perfect, and you expect it to be. That's what happens with these kinds of issues. But here we are, 4 years later. I'm not dead, and that was the goal. So we knocked that one right out of the park, guys.
Well, I'm proud of how far you've come.
Thank you.
Put that out there.
Okay.
Get that in the air. I know it's a lot to deal with. It's a struggle.
So it really did take a lot of people that. Well, okay. It took one person to realize that I had an absolutely angry problem with disordered eating. That was my psychiatrist. No one up until 2018 was like, this is a real problem. Like, I had a psychiatrist when I was like 14 or 15 who I was like, I think I have a problem. And she's like, you're fine. She weighed me for a little bit in our sessions, but that was pretty much it. And so sayonara. So yeah, I'm pretty grateful for this doctor of mine who discovered that I had a really big problem that could have been, terminal eventually. Eating disorders are now second to the opioid overdose, the biggest mortality rate.
Wow.
It's it'll kill you, bro.
I never knew that.
And it hurts. It hurts to be hungry.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's my new anti-eating disorder fund. So, nobody noticed it in me except for the psychiatrist. Somehow she was just asking me questions, and she kind of caught on and then finally dug into it.
Yeah.
And essentially pushed me to go to have an intake evaluation at the eating disorder place in Massachusetts where I went, and I fought that off. I thought about it for the week before I saw her next, and I was like, I'll think about it, I'll let you know. And I came back with I had completely convinced myself I could figure it out myself. So I said, don't worry about it. I'm determined to get through this, but I don't need that.
Yeah.
And so I expected to leave the office with her that day, really proud, really ready to do this and just to figure it out myself. And I left bawling because she sat me down and was like, Abby, you're going to die if you don't go do this. You'll never have any real relationships. You'll never feel connected to other people, and you'll never get better, and you're going to die soon. She would take my blood pressure every time I saw her, and I was losing more, and I was in really dangerous numbers weight wise. So that on top of, not eating and my celiac, I was orthostatic at that point, which is low blood pressure. It means you faint all the time or you can't see when you stand up. That's not normal, guys. You're not supposed to do that. Fuck your keto. That is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Your body doesn't need that.
Your body's
and I learned that the hard
right?
way. So once she gave me the toughest love that I have probably received in a while and needed, I was like, okay, I guess I have to do this. And it was hard to accept because it means you have to surrender every single thing you've ever known that has protected you. It's a lot like addiction in that way, and it's a lot like addiction in the way that we behave, in the way that we think, in the way that we replace emotions with other things. And so that's really the way that I try to explain the severity of a real eating disorder to people. And there's a very high rate of amount of eating disorders that come with alcoholism and addiction. So they're all in the same family. We're all in it together in that way.
I'm sure a lot of people don't even know that they go hand in hand.
No, I didn't know until I went to treatment for 15 weeks. Yeah. And I stopped drinking throughout all of that. I think, just to make sure that it didn't replace anything. I was never drinking for the right reason anyway. And so, unless it was a Bloody Mary, but it doesn't matter anymore. I stopped. So I didn't want it to become an issue. I could easily see it going that route. And there are definitely times now where I'm doing well in recovery, but I'm feeling emotional. And I'm well, since I can't, fuck with my eating anymore, I wish I had this other outlet. It's a pretty big celebration.
Well, I applaud you on that too.
Thank you.
That's big.
Yeah, it's been weird. I've lost a lot of friends through it. You can't be friends with the people you went to treatment with because who knows where each other is in their stage of recovery. It's, again, a lot like addiction. You have to make a whole new life. Even the friends you had before, I lost a very close friend. And I don't really know why, but I do know that they also had issues that were similar. And I assume it's because I was on the opposite side, and it was probably triggering to them to see what I was doing because I was talking about publicly my eating disorder and my treatment. People I went through treatment with were probably the most authentic people I'll ever have had in my life because we all had to be forced to be authentic there in order to heal. I'm an authentic ass person now, guys. I loved my time in treatment. I wish I could stay there all the time. I went into the city of Boston every single day on the train, and then I'd come back to my doggies at night and chill. Right. It was great. I had to take a leave from work, and it was, of course, cost literally more. It was
Yeah.
The money. It was not cheap to go to. It was. I'm incredibly privileged to have been able to go to any sort of facility for help, and that's really up, and it gives me a lot of guilt. But that's why I keep doing it, because of people who can't, and for the people who I know should have done it.
I know you might feel guilt for that. Well, you shouldn't, because honestly, you took advantage of the opportunities that were given to you, even if you say they're privileged, but and they're helpful, and a lot of people do get those opportunities, and then they don't take advantage of it. So, what was your favorite experience that you had while you were doing treatment in Boston?
What do you mean by experience?
Like activity that you guys did?
What was okay? So what you're asking me? First of all, I call it eating disorder daycare, and therefore you're asking me what's your favorite subject? It's recess. Duh. Oh. No, not snack time. Snack time. We actually had snack time. Oh. You brought your food every day except for like Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Or no, there were 2 days that they brought food for you and made you food. I was the token gluten-free. It was way worse that way. My food was always falling apart. Oh my God. My food was smaller than everyone else's too, so it was really funny. They got really jealous that my pizza pieces were small. Because oh my gosh, lots of eating disorder humor that I can't necessarily share. But I loved the people that I ate my breakfast with. We had breakfast, and then we had snacks, and we had lunch, and then so we. Those are a lot of the moments that people miss out on when you have an eating disorder. You miss out on with sharing with other people, especially your family. So it was a very special time that we all would. They would distract us with games and like lots of like silly songs and like facts. We do like horoscopes or something, and would just kind of get us through. I'm a big fan of the facility. It was really great. The counselors were like f***ing bomb. They were great. They really tolerated us a lot.
They're like, no glue in the hair. What do you do?
Well, we were also in there with like 13-year-olds. I think the youngest person was like 11, and the oldest person was in their 40s or 50s at one point. So like it really ranged, and we were with them all day. So like you really got to know like some shit about each other.
It's really cool.
So yeah, it was like them just being our camp counselors.
Yeah, because it's cool that the age was
very cool.
Was very different, because like it gave you perspective from each age group almost, and each stage through life almost. And
well, it was a lot. We could give the younger ones a lot of support.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge for them.
Like what I used to say was like, this is really hard right now, especially at your age, but like it's better that you do this now than at my age. I was 28 at the time, 29. And it's just like, I wish I had done that earlier, but here I am, so I can't change that. But
I just can't imagine being that young and like having to deal with something.
It's odd, but they found their people there. Yeah, it was interesting to see like the young spirit kind of mixed in with that kind of trauma. Yeah. But
that's probably tough to see too, like.
You only hear so much because you can't talk about you can't mention triggering things, but like you do hear like what they focused on, whether it was counting macros or micros or carbs or calories. Like I remember one girl specifically who was 13 talked about how her obsession was calories, was in counting those. And like imagine being 13 and fucking obsessed. Like it was heartbreaking. Yeah. But it was also like really inspiring because they were so determined, and some of them had been there for a really long time, and I got to see them leave and move on and just like start 8th grade, like it's insane. Yeah. So it was also like really, it helped sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because like, I don't know if you keep in touch with any of them or if you know about.
Yeah, we eventually, you're not supposed to, but we eventually ended up following each other on Instagram. So I have them all on there. A few, like 1 or 2 I'm actually like really close to. By the way, this facility shared with a part of Harvard. So they're doing their, I'm not going to say which building it is, but they're like going into their building to do the thing that they do there, and they're like, there are the sickos up there doing their glitter jars, like talking about their feelings on yoga mats. I loved it. I loved every freaking minute of it. I was so thrilled when I went to treatment. It was like, finally someone feels like it's like an adult is here.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to do everything. It's a coping skill, being willing and not being willful, which is the opposite. Today's coping skills are radical acceptance, opposite action, and Socratic thinking, questioning.
Do you think advertising and social media has an effect on eating disorders?
Yeah, like 1,000%. It's just where do I begin? Like there's no way it couldn't. Yeah. It's so sickening. Like that's how they make their money, is off of making everyone insecure about how they feel, so they can fix it, and so then they can make money off of fixing it. And social media influencers are no different. They're almost worse because they make things up and then like make people think things that are not true.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is a correlation between, like you just said, social media influencers almost like targeting youth, like the youth, and like almost putting that mindset into them? It's
not the influencers doing that. It's the government and society in general. It's Michelle Obama creating an anti-obesity fund, teaching kids that that's not their proper shape.
Yeah. Okay.
Teaching them what are good foods and what are bad foods, therefore creating cravings they can't fulfill, which is what causes binge eating eventually, is not eating. So if you're wondering why you're binging so much, it's because you know you're stopping yourself from having what you want during the day. It's literally that simple. Your body goes into like famine mode. It's like, oh my God, I need to eat. Done. That's like eating disorder 101. So.
Yeah. Well. You have all these intermittent fasting trends happening.
Oh my God.
Like, that's essentially what that is. It's
I intermittently fasted for 27 years. It doesn't, I mean, it works if you want to die.
Yeah.
It doesn't, there's no long-term form of losing weight. Even lap band surgery has high risks of gaining the weight back. Your body's not meant to do this stuff. If it was, you would be able to easily attain those body sizes and shapes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're right. It comes back to influencers like the Kardashians lying about what they've done, like photoshopping their bodies. If they were just honest about it, it wouldn't be as bad, but it still is.
Yeah. And you have it on the men's side too, because you have a bunch of guys taking testosterone and steroids and all these things, and then saying that
toxic
they're not taking anything, and they're pushing that, and they're like.
Are you talking about Tommy?
A little bit, yeah.
Tommy and Bert.
Yeah, essentially.
That's okay. We all know that they're on fucking steroids. They did it on an episode, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, men have eating disorders too. Women, men, neither, both, everyone in between have eating disorders, and I had all of the above in treatment with me. What we are taught, the way to compartmentalize it, is dieting is a cult. Diet culture is a cult. And we're here trying to survive and recover from something that everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
So, and this is important. And one of the things our counselors would say, and this woman changed my life, was that eating disorders are just like addiction. With addiction, you find your monster, you harness it, you lock it away in a closet, right? You stop. That's it.
Yeah.
With an eating disorder, you find your monster, you harness it, you lock it in a closet, and then you take it out 3 to 6 times a day.
Yeah,
you don't just
true.
Leave it. What our addiction is in that sense is lack of versus presence of. So it's a completely, and the thing we're lacking is something that keeps us alive. So you're having to tame this beast 6 times a day, even though it has to, stay at bay. It's like awful. So that's how we put it in perspective. And that's like the best way that I've ever heard it explained. So
that's really difficult to deal with because your body needs it, but your mind's telling you that you don't want
That's
it.
literally it. And there are studies that have shown that once you have an eating disorder, the thought of actually eating chemically creates anxiety.
Oh, really?
And that's the feeling of that hits the nail on the head for me, and I know, and a lot of people I know. Once your body stops ingesting that food, it gets used to that. So your body stops telling you when you're hungry. You lose your hunger cues. Your mouth stops watering. You don't feel your stomach gurgling anymore. Your body's literally like, I'm used to this, but so, whatever. So one of the hardest parts of recovery, I mean, there is no hardest part. It's all hard. It all sucks. I hate it. Everyone who's in recovery hates it. Tell anyone you know who's in recovery that you're proud of them and that they're doing a great job, because it sucks. Anyway.
I'm proud of you, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, you have to learn to eat, and it sucks because it feels like you're constantly eating on a full stomach.
Oh, jeez.
You're literally stuffing yourself. I have sat and cried trying to put food in my mouth.
That's horrible.
And if you don't eat, you get nauseous.
Yeah.
On like the comeback side, like once I started eating again, like I realized it was my nausea. Like my nausea wasn't completely celiac related. It was just the fact that I was dying and hungry. Mm-hmm. And so that was a major, I was like, wow, that's why I'm smoking so much weed.
Are there chefs with eating disorders?
Yeah, all the diety people are completely disordered.
Oh, you're right. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
And like, here's the thing. I have dated so many chefs that it's like, I don't know if it's like this Freudian thing, but they've always been really positively responsive to my eating disorder. And I think that's why like that dynamic was created subconsciously, because I needed someone, because I was in a codependent place at the time, to help me eat more, and they love doing that. That's how they speak.
Yeah.
And they had someone to do that with. They appreciate the food way more. So some of them, like are happy to make dessert all the time. They'll eat it sometimes, but then they'll want to work it off. It's that kind of thing. Okay. And once you've started treatment for eating disorder or recovery for eating disorders, you have to change the entire way you move your body. And for a good amount of time, you have to stop moving your body. And then once you start recovery, like get to a certain point in recovery, figure out how to start moving your body again. So it's like you really have to gauge who you have around you and what their priorities are as well. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a lot like, are these people who are going to do drugs with me and enable me, kind of a thing. And
you don't want those type of people around you.
No, and that's why I'm really open about my eating disorder, because it's just so odd to talk about. Like, I'm open and here, ready and willing to talk about it, but like, I'd just rather people know,
Yeah, just
it can be quite a surprise, I would imagine.
Well, it's beneficial for people to know too, because triggers and certain things.
Well, I'm at the point, luckily now, that triggers are much, much smaller to me. Boom, poof, recovery.
Mm-hmm. And you always come back to that too, which is good. So.
Yeah, it's taken a little while, and of course, it's never been linear. Of course, I've had my close relapses, but I've made it quite far.
Yeah.
I know when we started at work, you were ketoboy.com, and newsflash, I hate keto. Yeah. It's the worst. If you want to go into ketosis, just like stop doing anything in your life, because you're useless. Yeah. Sorry. I interviewed you, and one of the things you said to me
is that
you were keto and you had lost weight. And my first thought, this was last September, my first thought was, how will I deal with this if I have you hired? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can either inspire him and talk about it, or I can shut the up and just let him deal with it on his own and like deal with my thing. And like, that was a huge relief that I decided to do the latter, and I just let you figure it out and let you hear the way that I spoke instead of like addressing you. Yeah.
No, you just like wouldn't acknowledge it, or just like.
Oh yeah, I would just completely ignore you.
Or just like let me go. But like then, the more I spent around you, the more I realized like how my thoughts were altered, and I definitely had a disordered thinking, and throughout my whole life I've been like that, and it stems all the way back from football when I was young.
Oh yeah, that's rampant in athletes.
I'm starting at
Especially
7 years
men.
old, and I'm told I'm too heavy for this team.
Oof.
I'm told a 7-year-old. You're telling a 7-year-old that he's too heavy to play with his friends.
Yeah.
It's like my parents have that mindset a little bit too. Like they still mention dieting and stuff, and like
Diets, eating disorders are usually passed down. There has been research and proof of predisposed genes to eating disorders, but they're generally learned behaviors, which is really sad for so many people.
Yeah.
So you have to decide if you're going to be the cycle breaker or not. You know, like one of the biggest catalysts for me, I had my first intake evaluation for this facility and treatment scheduled for December of 2018. And I canceled it because I didn't think I needed it. Weeks after that, I got in a accident because I fell asleep at the wheel, which was like super hard for me to admit to anyone. I was really sick at that point. Like my celiac was newly diagnosed, so I didn't know what to eat at the time, and I was literally slowly dying from the inside out. Yeah. So I kind of thought about it for a couple of months, and then I ended up going for my real intake. And that's the level that this shit gets to. When I say it's just like an addiction, it is. You don't have your head on straight. Your stomach is your second brain. Yeah. So if you've got nothing in there, you're not going to perform well in anything. So it's been 4 years since I started that, and it will be never when I end it.
Yeah.
And I will be doing this for ever.
4 down, many more to go.
Once I graduated, and I have a hat that one of my friends made me, I put it here, my graduation hat. I graduated and went straight into IOP, which is how you kind of like step down. It's like a middle way to back to real life, because you have to learn to assimilate all over again with these new habits to form. So you go to IOP, and I was there for like on and off 2 years. And then like the pandemic happened and we went virtual. And that was wild. Yeah. My caseworker was a star. She got me halfway out of my abusive relationship. I attribute a lot of my wellness to her and that whole facility and all those people. It took like becoming an aunt for the first time, like to be like, huge. I want to be a part of this, and I want to be there for this, and in an emotional and physical way. But like, I don't want to be f***ed up. Yeah. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be absent. I don't want to be missing things because I don't want to eat there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I certainly don't want to set a bad example for these littles. So, yeah, I got my shit together. I loved riding the train every day. I love riding the train every day. Eating disorders are really important, and they're not recognized as much of an issue as they should be. Second highest mortality rate. That means they die the second most. Eat what the you want. Yeah. Because no one on their deathbed is saying, I should have eaten more salad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's 4 points. The least impressive thing a body can do is lose weight. So that's my bit about my eating disorder. Thanks for giving a shit. It's a big deal to me that people give a shit. It really is. Yeah. It's a really big part of who I am, unfortunately and fortunately. Mm-hmm. It might be a personality trait now, but it. I don't give a shit. So I mainly did it because my like best friend died like half a year before, and he never wanted to go to rehab or get any help for his like opioid addiction. Oh no, it wasn't an opioid, but he was an alcoholic. He died of opioids eventually, but he was mostly like doing other stuff that he was addicted to. But he knew he had a problem, didn't want to get help. I did it to spite him, literally, after he died. I was like, F you. That anger from grief will really... Oh, yeah. You got to use your anger for good. Mm-hmm. Anger is such a productive emotion. Got me out of an abusive relationship, and it got me through my eating disorder recovery. So use your anger. Wisely. .com. Wisely.
Don't call me wisely.
All right. Here we go to the next segment. Look, there's Louie. He came to be a part. Hey, Louie. Bo's right here.
The
Louie's here. Everyone's here. So what's the next segment?
Next segment, is everybody's favorite.
Tinder time. It's Tinder time.
Tinder.
We literally got requests for this one, and it wasn't so much of other people's stories. It was to see if I had more stories. So now I'm milking myself and exploiting myself for the podcast, which I was already doing, which is fine. We're talking Tinder and other dating apps.
Okay. What was the worst Tinder date that you got besides the first one that you've already told?
I talked about that really extreme interaction I had in like I think our first or second episode.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched that yet, go watch it because this one doesn't touch it.
No.
So I do have this other one, which was also it was a fairly date, probably my worst. Other than that one, okay. That one was more entertaining than this one. This was straight up like I hope I just get home, in one piece. So
yeah,
I was still like
scary.
newish to Tinder. I had been in like an 8-year relationship that ended when we were like engaged. So I was a fresh little baby in the whole pond. And it was my first Valentine's Day out of this relationship. But it was only 2 months after I ended up.
Shit.
So I was like, oh, what am I going to do about like Valentine's Day? How do I want it to matter? How do I make it not matter? Oh, go on a date. Like, true. But I was like, let's make it a lunch date. That way it's not a huge deal. So I made a date with this one person. And then since I was still on Tinder, I ended up like matching with someone else who was just in town for the night, and they were looking for someone to just like get dinner with because they were alone. It was Valentine's Day, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, and he was a lot cuter. So
there you go.
So I agreed to go with him for dinner.
Yeah.
So I had 2 different dates lined up.
Okay.
I can't to this day believe that I did this. The second date wasn't the bad one. It was very decent. It was nice. We enjoyed each other's company. We just went to go get tacos on Thayer Street at Paja's, and then he came over and hung out, and like that was it. We chilled.
Nice. Very cool.
And then I never saw him again, and that's kind of cool. That's one of the reasons I like Tinder, because you can just kind of meet people from all over the place who are just, crossing your timeline in life for a very, very small amount of time, and it's cool to kind of like be there for it and taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the first date didn't go that way.
Okay.
It was bad. I wrote a paper about it. I was going to CCRI, taking a class, and I had to write an instructional essay about something, about like how to do something or how not to do something. So I wrote how not to get a second date, and I based it on this date. And it's pretty much the gist of this date consists of meeting this person for lunch, fairly enjoying it, but also getting that feeling of, what is happening? What is this feeling that I'm feeling? What is my gut saying? Mm-hmm. We went and got drinks after, and he started drinking too much. So I was like ready to go home, but like he had driven. Oh, so he drove me home, and on the way he ran a stop sign and called someone a C word, and then called someone else or something.
Oh God. Okay.
And then once he ran the stop sign, I remember just thinking, like, if I get home alive, I am never seeing this person again. And I got home.
I'm glad.
And as we pull in to my driveway, date number 2 is standing on my porch waiting for someone to open the door, and I was like, holy So I like rushed to get my shit together in the car, and like I was like, oh my God, my neighbor's boyfriend is waiting to get inside. I have to go help him in. And
sly okay.
I got out of the car, I grabbed my stuff, and he pulled me back in, and he's like, do you think I'm gross? And I was like, what does that mean? What? Like, I just didn't understand. I was so new to all of this that like a red flag wasn't even in my brain. I was just aware that this was odd.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what are you talking about? And he was, and I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, do you think I'm gross? I'm like, I just met you. And then he kissed me, and I was so like, then I was grossed out. So much so that I left my scarf.
In the moment, you just like,
I did. I took my food, my leftover food, and I dropped the scarf and whatever, rip. and proceeded up those stairs and said hello to date number 2. And he was very pleased to see me. And I was like, hey, just got back from like doing this stuff and I'll be ready in just a second. Just give me a few seconds. Feel free to like come and use the bathroom, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Very cool.
And the date worsened only because of the aftermath that ensued. Not only was I grossed out and, rightfully so, creeped out, but he also still tried to get in touch with me after and like convinced me to see him again. And I was like, no thanks. And he went away for a while. And then he found me on Instagram like a year later and was like, hey, so I'm sorry about that. I was not doing so well. And I was like, hey, I'm not interested. And he's like, I'm fine. I don't drink anymore. I only do cocaine.
Nice.
And I was like...
Yeah, he's doing great.
Well, my best friend had just died, and we knew it was drugs, but we hadn't gotten the toxicology report, and I knew that he had done cocaine for a good amount of his life, so I was like really raw to that possibility at that point. It wasn't cocaine, it was opioids, of course, but I digress. So I was like, how does that make it any better? Like, you're not making your argument for me any better. He's like, well, I don't do bad cocaine. I was like, all right, I'm all set. And I was all set. I never tried to speak to him again. I never responded to him again because he did get back in touch with me like a year ago or so. Very apologetic. Has definitely gotten his shit together. Yeah. Which, cool. I'm really happy about that. As someone who also, as we all know, has gone through recovery. My heart goes out to anyone who struggles with addiction. But also, like, don't be whatever. We know.
Yeah. Well,
I got an A+ on that paper.
There you go. That's honestly all that mattered. So.
And I got home alive.
Yes, that too. I'm glad you're safe. Where are they now?
I don't know where he is. Both of them.
Yeah. Well, you kind of explained where number 1 is, what he's doing, but
yeah, that's about. I don't know much about him other than what I just said. Number 2.
Never saw him. Yeah.
Never saw him again. We barely stayed in contact. I think we still follow each other.
Cool.
On Instagram.
What made you interested in both dates?
Okay, so date number 1 was into the same music that I was and played in a band and had like the cute haircut, the emo haircut, stupid like that. But when I saw him in person, he was completely different. Like, he had a way different voice I was expecting. Obviously, a different height, But yeah. I don't get angry about the height shit. Just way less confident than he sounded on when we talked. And we talked a lot. So it was like a weird, like, oh.
It's weird.
And the other one, like I said, he was really cute. Tattoos. Seemed nice.
Okay.
Temporary.
Nice.
Respectful. Yeah.
Okay.
Needed food. Was willing to pay for mine.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So that was pretty much my worst dates to date.
Well, I can do my worst date if you want. I showed up. She didn't like me. I ordered a salad. She left.
Well, that's it for today. It's plenty. Let's deal with it.
Yeah.
It's enough. It's enough. We've all had enough. Yeah. We've all had enough. But next week's going to be cool. We'll have some more Tinder stuff. We're going to talk about my insides.
I like that. Just want to big thanks to all the listeners, followers, subscribers. Thank you for continuing to comment, do all that stuff every week. We appreciate that. Or whenever we release episodes, we appreciate you guys listening. Yeah.
Mouthwords Pod, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
What's our TikTok?
Mouthwords Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can find our own personal accounts on those pages.
Okay. And remember to subscribe. Slap this button. Keep doing that. Flick the button.
The button. So funny.
Okay. That's it. Bye, bye, bye. Okay. I'm out of here. I'm going to take everything in this house and flush it in the toilet. Start with my own pants.
Love you guys. Thanks.